We are going to hold people accountable that push lies. And the president believes deeply that American news outlets should be reporting the truth.
Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this.
They're disgusting. She's Anna Navarro. In your wildest imagination, you could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere.
Ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
Some stories begin quietly. This one didn't. It began with a sound, the sound of an entire television empire seemingly splitting apart in front of a live audience. Because there's something about daytime TV that people rarely talk about. There are cameras, there are lawyers, and then there is that moment when the two end up in the same room at the same time. That is exactly what happened here, and nobody seemed prepared for it. Karoline Leavitt stepped into the courtroom with the calmness of someone walking into a coffee shop. No panic, no drama, no obvious concern. She walked out carrying a verdict powerful enough to shake the foundation of ABC. And Megyn Kelly? Megyn didn't simply arrive to offer another opinion. She arrived ready to light the fuse, with a smile that seemed to say, "I've been waiting for this moment for years." So buckle up, because what happened next wasn't just gossip. It was the beginning of what looked like a slow-motion collapse of one of the biggest power structures in daytime television.
See, having just paid $15 million for a defamation lawsuit, would think not to engage in conspiracy theories about assassination attempts, but I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I gotta ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about.
For decades, that famous round table was much more than a talk show. It was treated like a throne room. 5 women, 1 microphone for each of them, and almost no fear of consequences. They said whatever they wanted. They made fun of whoever they wanted. Between commercial breaks, they could turn an opinion into something that sounded like reality. And America kept watching. But somewhere along the way, a dangerous belief started taking over the studio. People began acting as if having an opinion was the same as having proof, as if confidence could take the place of checking the facts, as if saying something loudly enough would somehow make a source unnecessary. And that's exactly where things can start falling apart, because reality keeps records. Facts leave evidence behind. And this week, that bill finally came due.
I'd like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework, because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
Now let's focus on that number. This wasn't some minor warning. It wasn't a small penalty or one of those quiet settlements that networks can bury somewhere deep inside a report. $800 million. Say that number during an executive meeting and watch the room suddenly go silent. That's not the kind of figure people casually write a check for. That's the kind of amount that can completely change the way a company operates. It can empty offices, change leadership structures, and send public relations teams into emergency mode before lunchtime. And here's the uncomfortable part for ABC. This wasn't simply a case of bad luck. The argument is that the consequences were building for a long time, and eventually the numbers caught up with the decisions being made behind the scenes.
Melania Trump came out and said she's about as pro-choice as they come. And here was the reaction on The View.
I think she hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
Would you look, this is a network that still runs out fact checks to these women, like it's concerned about them staying factual.
This is where the story takes a very different turn. Everyone expected drama. People expected yelling. They expected angry statements, public arguments, and a massive headline battle. What they didn't expect was silence. Karoline Leavitt didn't rush to social media. She didn't go on a rant. She didn't spend her time firing back at cable news commentators. Instead, she went to work. While the hosts were still exchanging jokes and sharp comments, Karoline was already meeting with attorneys. While the show was preparing its next hot take segment, she was putting together a detailed timeline. And while ABC producers were still enjoying their own on-air moments, Karoline was quietly building a case file that could stop a door. She wasn't interested in playing the same game. She was creating an entirely different one. And when she finally stepped into that courtroom, she wasn't there simply to receive an apology. She wanted a verdict powerful enough to keep echoing long after the cameras were gone.
She promotes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day on that show. Trump wasn't supportive enough of the cops who were, yes, in danger on J 6th. How does that explain their behavior on a daily basis toward Harris, toward Biden, toward AOC, toward all of the left, including their own show, Sunny Hostin? The hypocrisy is rank.
We did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men actually voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice.
Then things became much more serious, because discovery is often where legal cases become extremely uncomfortable for everyone involved. Internal emails were opened, production notes were collected, pre-show conversations were documented. Even the casual comments and jokes made before segments went on air could suddenly become important evidence. The courtroom started to feel less like a simple legal battle and more like an examination of everything that had happened behind the scenes. And according to what emerged, the controversial segments weren't simply random accidents. They weren't just misunderstandings. They weren't all spontaneous mistakes made in the heat of the moment. The claim was that some of these moments had been planned, rehearsed, and designed to generate a reaction rather than focus on what could actually be proven. Once those details became part of the record, the entire situation changed. At that point, the verdict could feel almost inevitable. But wait, because the biggest consequence wasn't simply losing a legal battle. It was what happened when the public started seeing behind the curtain.
Happy about it, and many people would like us to be more focused on the insurrection that he personally unleashed. If you ask them, as we discussed earlier, they think it's as bad as like the Holocaust, and you don't have to take my word for it. Here is Sunny Hostin of The View.
January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the.
And then Megyn Kelly entered the picture. She wasn't screaming, she wasn't celebrating, she wasn't standing there enjoying someone else's downfall. Megyn Kelly approached the situation with the calm focus of someone who already understood exactly what was happening. She didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need dramatic gestures. She had something much more useful: memory. Megyn had watched this kind of situation play out for years. She had seen the setups. She had seen ambush-style interviews. She had seen carefully edited moments designed to create a particular reaction. And she remembered them. She kept the receipts. So when the verdict arrived, she didn't need to celebrate. She didn't need to dance around the studio. She simply looked into the camera with the expression of someone watching another person finally discover a lesson the hard way. That quiet expression said more than a long speech ever could. And somehow, that single look became more powerful than any dramatic monologue.
You get this little lecture from, forgive me, those is over at The View.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. What? Oh, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never, he was looking out for me, but not those.
Now let's talk about the women sitting behind that table, because their reactions quickly became internet gold. Joy Behar looked like someone had just crashed her entire spreadsheet in the middle of tax season. Whoopi Goldberg had the energy of someone who had suddenly realized that everything was about to change. Sunny Hostin stared down at her notes as if the pages themselves had betrayed her. And Sarah Haynes? Sarah looked like she was already mentally preparing for an exit interview. The chemistry that once made the show seem almost impossible to stop had suddenly disappeared. In its place was something much more uncomfortable, a group of professionals who now appeared painfully aware that every word they said could potentially be examined by lawyers before it ever reached the audience. That isn't normal television anymore. That's a legal minefield with studio lighting, and the internet noticed almost immediately. Clips were analyzed frame by frame. Facial expressions became memes within hours. Awkward pauses turned into GIFs. A single glance could become an entire caption. The show didn't just lose the lawsuit. It lost something much harder to rebuild, its aura of confidence.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended, because you know who showed.
But here's the part that isn't being discussed nearly enough. This situation didn't affect only The View. It sent a message across the entire daytime television industry. Every host could suddenly start looking at their teleprompter a little differently. Every producer could become more careful about every adjective. Legal departments across networks could find themselves reviewing material much more aggressively. Even the word allegedly suddenly seemed much more important. Editorial meetings that once took 15 minutes could now stretch to 2 hours. Interns could be given summaries of defamation law before being trusted with certain assignments. Because whether you agree with Karoline Leavitt's case or not, the larger message was impossible to ignore. A microphone is not a shield. If anything, it can make a mistake much more dangerous because millions of people can hear it, and somewhere inside a network office, you can almost imagine an executive staring at the ceiling and repeating the same thought, "We should have fact-checked." Unfortunately, by then, it was already too late. The bill had arrived.
Hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 corrections, legal corrections. 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
I have another legal note.
My God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo. I have a legal note.
Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side. And then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern.
And of course, the internet didn't stay quiet. It turned the entire situation into an online spectacle. TikTok compilations appeared everywhere. Twitter threads stretched 6 miles long. YouTube shorts started piling up one after another. Karoline Leavitt's courtroom entrance became a category of its own. Megyn Kelly's calm reaction was replayed, edited, remixed, and given subtitles in 12 languages before the day was even over. The comment section sounded like a group chat at 2 a.m. She didn't even flinch. That verdict made the entire panel look 10 years older. Megyn didn't even have to say anything. And then came the memes. The View logo was edited onto the Titanic. Whoopi's face appeared beside captions about what happens when the receipts finally arrive. Joy Behar was turned into a courtroom sketch with an Exhibit A style caption. The internet showed absolutely no mercy. And a moment like that isn't easy to erase. You don't simply move past it. You wait for the next news cycle and hope people eventually forget. But the problem is, the internet rarely forgets.